She thinks we're Presbyterians, but...
Amen.
But actually now we go out to Skyline Church.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I hope you all keep the Garlows in your prayers. Carol, they got the really bad news. She's coming off of all the medications and going into hospice, so it's not good. So keep them in your prayers. Very sad. But I want to talk about tax policy, and I was talking to somebody just today up in Sacramento about giving speeches. They're like, yeah, try not to be too much of a downer. You want to give it to them straight, but you don't want to bum people out too much. So I always like to offer suggestions and tools, and I'll invite you, if you've got a pen, I'm going to give some of my very favorite resources. My wife and I have, since long before we met, I was always, in fact, my friends used to make fun of me because I always had an opinion on issues. You know how I'm sure a lot of you suffer from the same affliction. Well, so I've got a few resources that I recommend to people that really been just paradigm shift, big changes, powerful for me, and I'll use the term intellectual ammunition a lot, some good intellectual ammunition. So I want to give you some real specific suggestions. And first of all, low taxes, and absolutely, and how irritating is it that they love to paint the Tea Party as crazy, and all those wacko people. Oh yeah, those wacko people that believe in the Constitution and limited government. What crazy radical ideas are those, right? So, but low taxes is a battle for personal property rights, which is a bedrock and foundational principle for this nation. Your right to enjoy the fruits of your labor is about as foundational as anything in this country. And make no mistake, the other side is not just arguing about more government or less government. The other side wants to own your personal property because they think private ownership of personal property is an offense against humanity. It is one of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto to eliminate private property. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So I want to talk, the first part I want to talk about defense, because after all, this is California, so we're on the defense. But then I want to talk the second half about offense. So first on the defense, I mean, the state is just literally crazy. I mean, literally crazy. And maybe, I don't think it takes a guy from the Midwest coming out here and tell you that it's crazy. But in my personal observation, you're right. It is crazy. Everyone keeps telling me, well, it's California. I'm in Sacramento. I was in Sacramento today, and it's where politicians go to screw the people, and people hire lobbyists to get screwed less badly, And I'm up on a plane on a Monday morning with a bunch of other people. I'm like, poor sad souls. I guess I'm not the only one in this position. They've actually got a bill they're trying to eliminate what I do. So yeah, I get recruited to take a job out here a year ago, and now the bill's filed to eliminate my organization. So we'll see. So when I talk about they're killing the golden goose, it is just astonishing what they're doing up there. I mean, they want to just take it to business every which way. And when I got into the Missouri legislature, I did very simple math. My mother was a teacher. My dad was transferred from Chicago. They moved where the best schools are. Well, how do you have the best schools? You have a good tax base. How do you have a good tax base? You have a good business environment. So everything we want starts with a healthy business environment. The hard left doesn't understand that. Remember, they want to own your personal property. They want to control you. They want to. So it is just amazing how on the defense business is. But it's literally the golden goose has been killed, plucked, stripped clean, and now they're like picking their teeth with the bones, sitting around. How else can they abuse the carcass of the golden goose? Okay, but here we go. I want to talk in terms of a number of axioms, and I love axioms. Do I have two microphones going here that are dodging each other? So I really don't need this one. I need both. Okay. And I love axioms. Here's one, and I borrowed this from Grover Norquist. He had a great piece in the Wall Street Journal. If you like some of this stuff, look it up because it was just in yesterday. Republican elected officials should never raise taxes. Never, ever. Never. So Grover Norquist, now I first met him in '92 at the GOP convention in Houston, and I'm not like the biggest fan of the guy. I think he's really cool in a lot of ways, but he's flawed in others. But he really nailed it on this one, and this post was brilliant. And he said basically, he goes into it, raising taxes is what politicians do to avoid reforming government. They don't have to prioritize. Think about your own house. You know, you want to add more to the vacation budget, or you want to drive a fancier car. It's not in the budget. Well, what do? You cut other things, or you go make more money. But even when, so you prioritize. But even the decision to go make more money is budgeting, because now you're trading your time for more money. But government, see, they got a way around that. If they just raise taxes, they don't have to give up anything. They just go out and take it and grow. So it lets them avoid ever prioritizing. And let me tell you, if there's one thing politicians want, it's they want to be loved. You know, they want to be, and when people come in making demands, they don't like to have to tell them, no, sorry, we can't fund that. Now, is there ever a good tax? Well, you know, all right, I would say sure there are. Good taxes are a tiny subset of the ones you already pay now. Some of them are good. You need something. We want police, we want firefighters, we want roads, we want, you know. So it's not to say that all taxes are evil, but there are sustainable, proper levels, and then there are confiscatory levels, and that, of course, is where we are. The bad taxes are 100% of the ones you're asked to pass in the future. Yeah. They're all bad. There is not a good one. Don't be confused. Because any new tax you're asked for anything is asking you to help the politicians not prioritize with what they already have. Quick, if you think I'm mistaken or extreme, come up with a tax they just recently repealed. You know, they never go on and undo them, so they're only adding more. And so the fundamental premise of that is, well, people 30 years ago might have been able to sustain government on a certain level, but government always is going to need more, because it never goes backwards. So any new taxes are wrong. There is one exception to that, and I'm a big believer in the fair tax. So if you've got a sales tax swap where they want to proportionally reduce your income tax, which, by the way, is taking your personal property, the fruits of your labor, they're taxing you for the fruits of your labor. So if it's a swap of an income tax for a sales tax, go for that one, in my opinion. Now, your income is your private property, and that you need to not forget that axiom. And, you know, remember that famous statement, you didn't build that? Yeah. Hello? They're after your personal property. They don't think it belongs to you. The fruits of your labors, what's mine is mine, and what yours is mine. You know, that's the way they think. So here's the other axiom that you have to watch and be ready, because we have to give arguments. You know, we've got neighbors who are sometimes lulled. How many of you have had a neighbor that voted for the tax and you're pulling your hair out trying to explain it? What are you thinking? Tax increases are always winners for Democrats. They're always winners. The same consultants who run the tax campaigns are the same people that run the Democrat campaigns. That's what they do. There was a woman in St. Louis. She was the top Democrat consultant, and every time there's a tax on the ballot, she runs the campaigns. So corporate St. Louis, and this is repeated everywhere that I've ever seen, the Democrat politicians who run the government in these areas, especially the big cities, take Detroit, San Diego, LA, wherever, what they do is they don't prioritize, or actually they do prioritize, but they prioritize things Democrats like to spend money on. St. Louis County was very short on money. The roads were crumbling, and yet they decided to build a women's shelter. they decide, and you know, nothing wrong with women's shelters, but we had women's shelters. We had private women's shelters. There wasn't a need, but Democrats love to build because that's a payoff to their union branch. So they like to tax, they like to build, they don't like to prioritize. So here's what they do. They don't prioritize what business needs. Then when business says, hey, we need infrastructure, we need to improve the highways, we need to improve the transit system, they say, oh, well, good. Then you guys fund the tax campaign, we'll get our Democrat consultants to run it. So corporate, St. Louis or wherever, will spend millions of dollars running a tax campaign for a new tax for roads or bridges or parks or 911 service. There's one every 2 years or so. They'll run all these special targeted taxes that they get business to pay for. Democrat campaign consultants run it. And so the Democrats are constantly refreshing their data. They're using all this corporate money to pass taxes, and they're ramping up their data. So you have to oppose those.